Oh. Hi there. You're back for more. Good. Because I'm not gonna be ignored. Let's face it, more of the Reaction Shot podcast is never a bad thing. You know, I have exactly what I need to say on this cassette tape that I recorded. I want to play it for you first. Let me hit play. Hello, listeners. Are you surprised? This is what you've reduced me to. I guess you thought you'd get away with it. Well, you can't. Because part of me is growing in your ear. And that's a fact, listeners. And you better start learning how to deal with it. Because, you know, I hear you. I see you. I create for you. I show you. Can you understand? Can you? I'm just asking you to acknowledge your responsibilities. Is that so bad? I don't think so. I don't think it's unreasonable. That's all I can play for you now. What's up, everyone? I am so happy to be here in this new season with you, the listeners. So much has happened since season 1, and I couldn't be happier. One of the biggest things to make note of is I'm now officially a part of the You Run Podcast Network, a network jam-packed with some amazing creators with a wide range of podcast topics. So, hop on over to the You Run Podcast webpage. That's yourunpodcast.com. And check out all the other amazing talents featured. But there's one in particular that I'd like to point out, and that's Podcast in the Woods, a horror podcast that not only focuses on familiar classics, but also on some obscure titles and under-the-radar gems. Your host Boomer, co-host Gabby, and some revolving guests make this horrific trip into the woods both informative and fun. Podcast in the Woods is a show worthy of adding into your rotation. The hosts keep each episode fresh and exciting, and even make you want to check out, or return to, each movie that they focus on. So please, check out Podcast in the Woods wherever you listen to your podcast, or at yourunpodcast.com. Again, that's yourunpodcast.com. Now, let's get into Season 2, Episode 11 of the Reaction Shot Podcast. In this episode, I'm introducing returning guest Brittany Cunningham to operas, discreet conversations, sink sex, elevator blowjobs, spaghetti dinners, bunny boiling, and much, much more. That's right. For this episode, we are focused on Adrian Lyne's 1987 thriller, Fatal Attraction. Wiki Fandom has provided a synopsis of the film for an overall story refresh. Dan Gallagher is a successful, happily married Manhattan lawyer whose work leads him to meet Alex Forrest, an editor for a publishing company. While his wife Beth and daughter Ellen are out of town for the weekend, Dan has an affair with Alex. Though it was initially understood by both as just a fling, Alex starts clinging to him. Dan spends a second unplanned evening with Alex after she persistently asks him over. When Dan tries to leave, she cuts her wrist in a suicide attempt. He helps her bandage the cuts and then leaves. He thinks the affair is forgotten, but she shows up at various places to check in on him. She waits at his office one day to apologize and invites him to a performance of Madame Butterfly, but he politely turns her down. Alex then begins to phone his home at all hours of the day and night, claiming that she is pregnant and plans to keep the baby. Although he wants nothing to do with her, she argues that he must take responsibility. After he changes his home phone number, she shows up at his apartment and meets Beth, pretending to have interest as a buyer for their home they have for sale. Later that night, Dan goes to Alex's apartment to confront her, which results in a scuffle. In response, she implies that she will not be ignored. Dan moves his family to Bedford, but this does not deter Alex. She has a tape recording delivered to him filled with verbal abuse. She stalks him in a parking garage, pours acid on his car, and follows him home one night to spy on him, Beth, and Ellen from the bushes in their yard. Her obsession escalates further when Dan approaches the police to apply for a restraining order against her. The lieutenant claims that he cannot violate her rights without probable cause. At one point, while the Gallaghers are not home, Alex kills Ellen's pet rabbit and puts it on their stove to boil. After this, Dan tells Beth of the affair and Alex's supposed pregnancy. Enraged, she demands that Dan leaves, but before he goes, Dan calls Alex to tell her that Beth knows about the affair. Beth gets on the phone and warns Alex that she will kill her if she persists. Without Dan and Beth's knowledge, Alex picks up Ellen from school and takes her to an amusement park. Beth panics when she realizes that she does not know where Ellen is. She drives around frantically searching and rear-ends a car stopped at an intersection. Beth gets injured and is then hospitalized. Alex later takes Ellen home, asking her for a kiss on the cheek. Following Beth's release from the hospital, she forgives Dan and they return home. Dan barges into Alex's apartment and attacks her, choking her and comes close to strangling her to death. He stops himself, but as he does, she lunges at him with a kitchen knife. He overpowers her but decides to put the knife down and leave. Beth prepares a bath for herself when Alex suddenly appears, again with the same kitchen knife. She starts to explain her resentment for Beth, nervously fidgeting, which causes Alex to cut her own leg. Dan hears the screaming, rushes in, wrestles Alex into the bathtub, and seemingly drowns her. However, she suddenly emerges from the water, swinging the knife. Beth, who went searching for Dan's gun, shoots Alex in the chest, killing her. The final scene shows police cars outside the Gallaghers' house. As Dan finishes delivering his statement to the police, he walks inside, where Beth is waiting for him. They embrace and proceed into the living room as the camera focuses on a picture of the two of them and Ellen, a happy family. Wow, absolutely fatal. So, what's Brittany's reaction to her first viewing? Well, let's find out. But before we get started, let me leave you with this line of dialogue from the film. Bring the dog. I love animals. I'm a great cook. Hi everyone, I'm Dave and I love movies. So, welcome to my podcast, The Reaction Shot. In each episode, I'll dive deep into a movie of any genre that holds a special place in my heart. But here's the twist. I bring on a guest who has never seen that movie before, until now. We discuss, dissect, and review from pre to post-production to behind-the-scenes stories and well into its impact on pop culture. Will we agree on everything, or will we have wildly different views? Thanks for hitting play. Let's roll tape and find out. Fade in. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reaction Shot Podcast. It is your host Dave, and my wonderful guest, Brittany Cunningham. Brittany, how are you?
I'm great, Dave. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. So, the last episode we talked about Fear from 1996, and you mentioned that you had never seen Fatal Attraction. That's wild to me, Brittany. I don't know why. It was wild to me, so when you mentioned it, I was like, Well,
You're like, I gotta do it. Yep.
yeah, I told everyone I don't want to hear your voice again until we're doing that. So, everyone, here's Brittany's voice. So we are doing Fatal Attraction.
Yay.
Real quick rundown. Fatal Attraction is a 1987 erotic. Can't talk. It's really cute. It's Monday again, guys.
Hey, case of the Mondays.
Yeah. 1987 erotic psychological drama thriller released on September 18th, 1987. This movie had an estimated budget of $14 million. For its opening weekend, it grossed $7.7 million. It remained at number 1 at the box office for 8 consecutive weeks. Its end gross in the United States was $156.7 million, and its final worldwide gross was $320.1 million. Crazy. Brittany, what do you think about those numbers?
I mean, that's pretty impressive considering the budget that they had. So they made it and then some, times a lot.
Yeah, this movie was a smash hit, and the word of mouth just kept it going. People were going to the theaters, seeing it weekend after weekend. It actually ended up being the second highest grossing film of 1987 in the United States, behind Three Men and a Baby. But it ended up being the number 1 highest grossing film of 1987 with the worldwide numbers.
That's impressive, honestly.
Yeah, for a movie in 1987, this film wasn't necessarily a super accessible film in terms of its R rating, its content. Even at the time, Michael Douglas and Glenn Close weren't huge names. People knew who they were. There was definitely Academy Award conversations, I believe, definitely from Glenn Close and possibly Michael Douglas. They were known, but they weren't, who they are today or who they were after this film came out. So for this to have as much legs as it did and to make as much revenue as it did, kind of insane, but in all the right ways. And audiences at the time loved this movie, and they were very fearful of it.
I mean, I believe it considering all the things that happened.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it's very telling of its time of how big this movie was, and the fact that it's still talked about today. They even did a mini-series remake because it still holds up. Everyone knows what this movie is. Like it or not, they all know what it is. There's a lot of things in this film that happens that we'll definitely get into that not only stand the test of time in pop culture, but just in culture in general. So that's something to be pretty excited about.
Yeah.
So critically, today, in 2025, right now at Rotten Tomatoes, we are at a 74%. We are at a 72% from user reviews. On Metacritic, we're at a 67 out of 100 critically, and a 7.6 out of 10 from users. And Letterboxd, we're at a 3.5 out of 5. And Internet Movie Database, we're at a 6.9 out of 10. So, as I mentioned, when the film came out, critics and audiences absolutely loved it. Over time, there's a lot of things that kind of came to light about the film, its subject matter, how certain things are portrayed, that is definitely criticized nowadays. So those ratings have definitely gone down, especially on Rotten Tomatoes. So things can change a little bit over time, and Fatal Attraction's definitely changing a little bit. How do you feel about just hearing those numbers?
Genuinely, I'm not surprised that the numbers are that high because I've always heard about Fatal Attraction. I just never was interested in watching it because I never actually watched a trailer. It just didn't jump out at me.
Sure.
So, yeah, but I understand because I mean, Michael Douglas has been so popular for so long, and Glenn Close, like, I kind of looked up a few things and they said that this role for her was completely different from the other roles that were like very not goody two shoes, but just like girl next door. Like she is prim and proper type deal. So I get it in that aspect for sure. Not necessarily my cup of tea of a film.
Okay.
But at the same time, there was a film that I was thinking of while watching it, and I said they did it better, and then I realized it's the same director. So
I know what movie you're going to talk about. Go ahead. What movie is that, Brittany?
Unfaithful.
Yes. So Adrian Lyne, who directed this film, his films are honestly really good. They're definitely character studies. He also did Flashdance. 9.5 Weeks was his film that came right before this film, and that movie is known for a lot of scenes as well. He's always been someone who either writes or directs really deep character studies, and Unfaithful he kind of took everything he did in the 80s and brought it to a more relevant time with Richard Gere and Diane Lane.
Yeah.
And who was the guy she sleeps with? I forget.
Honestly, I forget what his name is, but I loved him.
Yeah. Well, whoever that guy is,
He did a great job.
Yeah, he did a great job.
The French guy. Yeah.
The French guy, yeah. I know it'll come to me as soon as we stop recording, but it's fine. It's fine. So, yeah, so your history with Fatal Attraction, essentially, you knew what it was, you've heard about it, you're pretty big into pop culture, so I'm sure there was things about the film that you did know about, but you said this wasn't really a movie that interests you at all?
No, honestly, not really. And even watching it, I was like, okay. And then it took a turn and I was like, no. No, why are we going to do this? And then my brain starts doing things and I'm like, oh, okay, we're fine.
That's why yeah. Well, I'm glad you gave it a chance. My history with Fatal Attraction goes back. I don't really remember the first time I watched it, to be really honest with you guys. I will say it was probably a little bit younger than I should have been. I feel like when I was about 10 years old was when I was really getting into things I probably shouldn't be watching. I was able to be a little bit more rebellious,
I feel that.
I feel like there wasn't really strict protocols at Hollywood Video and Eagle Video and Blockbuster. You just kind of went in and you're like, I'm going to take this movie, please. And they're like, Land Before Time.
I'm like, the counter. You're not even above the counter. And they're like, can you rent? Are you sure this is okay?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, my mom's waiting in the car. I swear.
Yeah. They're like, wait a minute. So you're getting Land Before Time again? And I'm like, yeah, bitch, but I switched out the tape. It's Fatal Attraction.
That's hilarious.
I used to do that.
Kids would do that. Yeah. Because you have to.
It's me, Brittany. I'm that kid.
You are the kid.
I love it. Kind of a little off topic, but not. I never did this, but there is a meme going around where people were talking about how they used to switch the Jack Frost movies at Blockbuster. So there's the family-oriented Jack Frost film with Michael Keaton, but there's also a horror film version of Jack Frost, and it's extremely gory, lots of nudity, and people at Blockbuster used to switch the videotapes. And you know what? I'm really sad I didn't think about that because I think it's fucking hilarious. That
would be horrifying because you know what? I have seen Jack Frost with Michael Keaton, and I've also seen The Outside because it's like a snowman and it turns into like a scary teeth thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a holographic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember that. And every time I would see it, I'm like, I would turn it around.
Me, I'd put it in front of all the boxes. That's all you see.
Yeah, and I'm like, nobody needs to see such a scary thing. Because I said, oh, look, a cute snow. Oh, my God. That's not a snowman. That is not a snowman.
I was the asshole turning it around to the scary stuff, and you were the one turning it back to the nice stuff. Got it.
Yeah, we gotta save the imaginations. Because once it's in there, once Freddy Krueger is in there, and it's anybody, game over.
Guys, once Freddy's in your dreams, there's no escaping.
And he'll bring all of his little friends, too.
Yeah, and once Alex Forrest is in your bed, there's no escaping.
There's literally no escaping her. She'll go out of her way to make sure you can't.
That is very true.
Person. I had to keep watching it because I was like, she's not for real. And I was like, oh, no. she is watching him everywhere, like Michael Myers.
She was. Yeah, guys. Brittany texted me while she was watching this, and she was like, "She is everywhere, like Michael Myers." And Brittany and I have this ongoing thing. Brittany's very first episode on the Reaction Shot podcast was Halloween because she's, I think, kind of mortified of Michael Myers. Correct?
Yeah, a high form, but like I can talk about it now. But if like a little screech of the song happens, immediately go back to 10-year-old Brittany, and I'm like, no, I'm scared again.
Help.
Yeah, help me, please.
Oh, I love it. So, with that being said, we have a pretty small cast for this film. I will say that I think everyone in this cast does a really good job. We can definitely get a little bit more into that as well. But our cast is Michael Douglas as Dan Gallagher, Ann Archer as Beth Gallagher, Ellen Latson as Ellen Gallagher, Glenn Close as Alex Forrest, Stuart Pankin as Jimmy, and Ellen Foley as Hildy. As mentioned before, it is directed by Adrian Lyne. It is written by James Dearden. So, James Dearden wrote a script and filmed a short film based on that script called Diversion in 1979. It was a 40-minute short film. It's essentially the same story as Fatal Attraction. So he wrote this story as a short. He filmed it, very low budget. Studios caught wind of it, and they really, really, really wanted to make this into a feature-length film. And it happened. He wrote the full screenplay for the film as well, kind of expanded the idea of it all. So, Brittany, do you think this film works as a 2-hour-long feature, or do you think the idea of it could have been boiled down to 40 minutes?
I mean, maybe a little bit longer than the 40 minutes. I think it was 30 minutes too long. Okay. What is considered as a short? Because I always thought shorts were like less than like 15 minutes. But is it less than an hour and 15 maybe?
I believe it's less than an hour.
Okay.
And I think it's essentially, I think it's the time, like the length of time and the amount of budget that's put into it.
Yeah.
Again, I haven't seen it, but I feel like it's probably just 3 characters. It would be like the Dan,
and it
Beth,
was like
and
shot
Alex.
in a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But yes, I think that this feature film was 30 minutes too long.
Gotcha. Okay. With that being said, let's kind of do a rundown of how we want to score this film. Okay. Kind of jump right into our reactions. So we went over where everyone stands critically on all of our wonderful websites. Brittany, the rating of the film on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being best rating ever, 1 being like, this is not good writing.
I would give it a 5. It's in between because I like see what they're trying to do, but at the same time, I feel like it's from a specific lens. So they are depicting Alex's character far more crazy than she probably would be, or let's hope not. But at the same time, like it was such a short amount of time that all of that stuff happened that she just went. Ugh. So I feel like there should have been more structure to that, into like why Dan Gallagher did what he did.
Fair.
So
I actually agree with you. I wrote down 5 out of 10 for the rating as well. I don't want to give the film a pass for its time. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I do feel during this time in the 80s, there was somewhat of a misogynistic type of approach to how characters are written, to how women are portrayed. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not giving it a free pass. Unfortunately, that I feel like that's just where the world was at the time.
Yeah. So
in translation to where we're at now in the world, or where everyone's brain should have been, the entire span of lifetime, we definitely see the issues in the writing you said from a different lens, and I feel like we are now watching it in 2025. We're definitely seeing it completely different, and off camera, Brittany and I talked about how the F slur is also used in this film. Whenever Alex records a message for Dan on a cassette tape, we were talking about how there's a lot of movies between the 70s and 90s, and I mean, shit, even the early 2000s.
Early 2000s, yeah.
Yeah. There was definitely a big gap of time where we know that these words had an impact or, an effect on a certain person or a group of people or whatever it might be. For some reason, it was just accepted. Regardless of the intention, it was accepted. So sometimes watching films, I mean, even in Fear, the F slur was thrown around in Fear, and that was the last film that we did, and that was from 1996. There's definitely a different style and different time that these types of things were written. So again, I don't want to give it a pass for any of that stuff by any means. It's not okay, but if we're looking at it from the lens of 1987, how good was this movie? How did it look? So that's why I give the rating a 5 out of 10. It definitely worked. I mean, the writing on page, the idea, the thriller, the one night stand that turns bad, it works on the page in 1987. It just doesn't translate to now and over time. Yeah, 5 out of 10, like you said. We understand where we were trying to go with it, but there's a lot of things that could have been fleshed out. The Alex character could have been fleshed out more in depth and better.
Okay.
Okay, directing, scale of 1 to 10.
I gave it a 6. It kept bouncing back and forth and not necessarily in a good way because whenever Beth is running through the hallways trying to find Ellen, and it's just we're in the school, we're with Ellen, we're back in the school, we're with Ellen, but it's just I don't know, it was a lot.
No, it's okay. I'm going to take what you're saying and I'm going to look at it a little bit differently. I actually gave it an 8 out of 10. And what you just said, I actually like. Really? Only because we're seeing, from my perspective, I'm going to use the infamous bunny scene. We're going from the tension of Beth walking into the house, trying to figure out what's going on, and we're also simultaneously cutting to her child, Ellen, running to go see her bunny rabbit. And as we're going back and forth, I feel like it's building tension to where we see the boiling pot and we're like, what's in the pot? And you see Ellen running to the bunny and you're like, well, what's the... I feel like the correlation is just kind of building anxiety just from how it's filmed, and the same exact thing goes for the scene you're talking about, going back and forth. So she's freaking out. We as an audience see that Ellen is fine, essentially, but she is with Alex. And seeing Beth have her panic moment, like, where is my daughter? And going back and forth, and it's just... I feel like it's creating some kind of suspense. I like that. I understand what you mean, though, because at the same exact time, did you have to do that? Could you have built suspense without just doing the constant cutting? So I definitely get it from that perspective. It's something that I did like, but obviously it could have worked in different ways.
But honestly, I like the bunny scene far better than the other scene because, at least in my point of view, I already knew Alex was going to be crazy the first time Dan met her. And just the way that she was looking at that party. So I was like, oh, she's going to be a problem. I didn't know how large of a problem she was going to be. So I think at that point, I was kind of judging the way that Ellen's parents parented her, because why would she just go with a random stranger that she has literally never met before? Sure. So I was like, what are we doing? How did all of these people just let this little girl go with this person?
I know.
But then the roller coaster scene, that was cool because it was flashing back to the car. I don't know. I think her running through the hallways was just But the bunny in the pot scene, that was
oh yeah, we'll
completely unnecessary and ridiculous. But she said, you know what, you fuck with me, I'm gonna fuck with everything you have.
I'm gonna fuck with your bunny.
I'm gonna don't fuck with your bunny. That poor bunny and poor Ellen. She just wanted that very scary albino bunny, and she got one. And then...
and then bunny no more.
Bunny no more. Bunny stew.
Woo! Bunny stew. Yum. Brittany, where are we going with the action in this film?
The action, I gave it a 6 because there is action in it, but it's more so... there's too many... I think there's too many scenes for me that it's like just Alex and Dan, but nobody else really knows what's happening. So it's such a isolated, dramatic action until like towards the end, like the last 25 minutes, because it's just like them. So it's more so like their sexual chemistry, attention, or whatever that they're doing than anything, until like Beth finds out about the nonsense, and then shit gets amped up. But other than that, like throughout the film, I feel like not much is happening in that aspect of it.
I feel the same. I gave it a 5 out of 10. I feel like there's just as much calmness in the film, and calmness in terms of conversation pieces. But then there's also scenes where a lot of things are happening, such as, you know, the kidnapping and the bunny rabbit scene, obviously the sex. There are scenes of action taking place, but it doesn't consume a lot of time, and it's for the most part pretty spaced out. So yeah, you get that. Yeah. Drama, Brittany, scale of 1 to 10. What's the drama?
A 9, because everybody was so dramatic.
Wait, I gave it a 9 out of 10, and I said the drama is everywhere.
Everywhere. At any given point. Whether it's Ellen screaming in her dad's ear, the phone's ringing, crazy. Or like Alex just being Alex. Like, nobody had any chill. Except for Beth, actually. She had a little too much chill. And I said, girl, I need you to figure out your shit right now. Because you should be more angry than right now.
Do you remember my love for Amy Brenneman in Fear?
Yes.
Remember I mentioned it like 77 times in the Fear episode?
Is Beth your girl?
I fucking love Ann Archer as Beth. I don't know what it is. It's so well done. I'm not comparing the characters, but the idea of who these characters are, the actresses, the way they portray the characters, phenomenal. Every scene Ann Archer's in, I'm like, episode, but the scene when she takes the phone call, which we'll talk about, the scene when she takes the phone call and says something, her demeanor, the action, the look, like everything about it, it's so simple, but it's so effective, and not everyone can do that. And every time I told Zach, I'm like, oh my God, watch the scene, and then it happened, and Zach's like, okay. Cool.
Honestly, and that was a scene I said, you know what, good for you. Mm-hmm. Like the slow click. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. hair flip, and her style is amazing. Like, beautiful. She's beautiful. And that's what I don't understand. In the beginning, whenever Dan does what he does, it's like, what just happened? Did I miss something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess I missed 9 years of something, because like,
yeah.
Oh shit.
Oh man.
The drama.
Yeah. What do you rate the suspense in Fatal Attraction?
I gave it a 6. Like, it can be more because there are suspenseful moments, but like, it was like every scene, you knew something unhinged was gonna happen. You just didn't know like what level of unhinged.
Sure. Essentially the same. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Could have been drug out a little bit more. So what are we rating the comedy in Fatal Attraction?
So I know that there was parts that were the comedy right there.
Literally.
Sarge gets a 10 out of 10.
For sure.
But the comedy, so I actually watched an interview of I guess it was like an anniversary because it was Glenn Close and Michael Douglas, as we'll say like 5 years ago, maybe 3. He said that there was a comedic part when they're in her apartment. He's like trying to take off his pants to, like comic relief. And I was like, that wasn't actually funny.
No.
at
Not
all.
funny at all.
So I'm not really sure what part was supposed to be funny. I know that there were intended parts to be funny.
Sure.
But they were either stereotypical or just not it. So I gave it a 0.
Oh. Hey, that's fine. A 0 out of 10 for comedy. I gave it a 1 out of 10.
So we're like on the same path.
Yeah. I think Stuart Pankin, he was funny, but again, as you mentioned, kind of fell into the stereotype of the loud friend. But he at least was joyful. There was a lot of dreariness in the film.
Yes. He said,
Somebody's feeling better.
Pay attention to me.
Brittany, what do we rate the music of Fatal Attraction on a scale of 1 to 10?
Oh, there's only one song that plays besides like the little screechy happenings throughout. So I also
Right.
gave that unfortunately a 0 because
Okay.
not that I dislike the opera. It would, that whole scene made me want to throw my TV type deal, like Fear. Because I was like, how did we get here? How did we get at that point? But yeah.
How did we get here? Yeah, it's funny. So there is a score for the film, but it actually doesn't even start until a half hour into the movie. So obviously during their celebration time, like when he first meets her at the party for that, what was it, for like that book release or like a sushi party book release for
like Sensei or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some music playing in the background there, but as far as outside of that, as far as like music playing, there's no real score that kicks in until 30 minutes in, and it's very few and far in between.
Yeah, and when it's happening at one point, I forget which scene it was, but I was like, I need them to stop doing that because it's just so like high violin, and you're like, nope, turn it off. What did you rate it?
I gave the music in the movie a 2 out of 10 because I did like some of the score that they had in the film.
Okay.
I think the use of Madame Butterfly throughout it, I'm not an opera guy, but I think in terms of storytelling and stuff, I think it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, like considering the story behind that whole song in general for the two of them, which also, that was a lot. Like I get it. I would say, okay, if I was to choose a piece of the score that I liked, I would probably choose the very end.
Okay.
Because I know that they play that throughout, but like you kind of hear it kind of go through and do the zoom in and all that stuff. So I would choose that one. But other than that,
yeah, I agree with you.
Factual.
So overall, with the film, what did you give it on a scale of 1 to 10? What is your reaction?
So you know how I scored Fear a higher score because the music?
We didn't have the music to save us on this one.
And that's actually exactly what I wrote. I said, unfortunately, music couldn't save this one. It's a 2 out of 10.
Oh, no. I think this is your worst rated movie.
It is. It is.
That's okay.
I fell asleep twice.
Did you really?
I did. And then I woke up and I'm like, okay, what just happened? And then I tried to rewind it and then I fell asleep again and I was like, what is happening? I should not be tired. But sometimes for movies, like there's certain scenes that'll happen and my brain's like, man, we're done with this. And I'll just be out. It's so bad. It's so bad. But that's where I'm at.
2 out of 10. Can you take a guess of what I rated it?
A 10 out of 10 because you've seen it so many times and it's like your go-to, I feel.
So back in the day, I would have said it's probably a 10 out of 10 for me, but I give it a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
So I'm on the opposite side of the scale than you.
Did you knock it down because of the and I guess not the content, but like how it's structured.
Yeah, I really think at the end of the day, I really wish that the character of Alex was fleshed out. So now that I'm older and obviously more understanding of, life and situations in life, I think I knocked it down that way just because I want more about Alex. I want to see how she works, what's going on in her mind. Yeah, so a 9 out of 10. I mean, I really enjoy the movie. I like what it's trying to do. I think I give it a little bit of a pass in terms of me understanding what it was trying to do. I think the conversation about Alex aside, and maybe some of the things how the things are being written, I get what they were doing and everything, and I think it's a fun thriller. I think it holds up in the thriller aspect, and I still think it's a movie that can scare some men to, putting their dick away and not cheating on their woman and ruining a happy marriage.
Honestly. And that's where I think that I was so rated it so low, because I get it as structurally like a thriller, a horror type deal of like what could happen if you cheat. Yep. But at the same time, it's like it's just another film of what happens if you cheat, and it's what's the point in my eyes, because like people cheat, people have like their relationships go south, people fall out of love, but he literally went out of his way to do all of that, and in 3 days it was like your whole world is ruined.
Yeah.
And like the timeline didn't even make sense. So it was, to me, it was like a man writing a thriller fantasy on what would happen if they had an affair with a woman, and that person decided to say, you know what, I'm good. That 12-hour rendezvous was good for me. Thank you so much. And then all of a sudden she's like nuts. She didn't even know him. Like, you can't be that invested in somebody that you barely even knew.
No, that's very true. I get why it doesn't hold up in today's world. So I think that's why I was really excited to talk about this movie with you, just to get your take on it all. I do like that we had two different ratings for it, for sure.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to talk about with Fatal Attraction. With that being said, we talked about music in the movie. I asked you if we could do something kind of fun, I guess.
Yeah.
If we could put one song into the film from that time period, so probably within like the 3 years of filming, what song would you pick and where would you put that song in the film?
So I actually chose 2 different songs because I had to do one for Alex and one for Dan. Okay. So my one for Alex was Alone by Heart. And the scene would be anytime Alex tries to contact him and he doesn't answer, or whenever she's sitting in the bed with like the food around and she just keeps dialing because he changed or blocked her number or something, changed his number, couldn't get into contact with him at work type deal. So then have you ever heard of Alone by Heart?
So that's actually one of my songs, as I picked 2 as well. I chose Alone by Heart, and I said it would kind of work in the scene, even though Madame Butterfly's playing. I think the scene where she's sitting on the floor and doing the light flick, it'd be cutting back and forth between the bowling scene and her sitting there. Yeah. So it kind of plays with the fact that she is alone. And trying to get to be with him, and we are simultaneously seeing him having bowling with his family and friends. So.
Yeah, and I said both instrumental and lyrical, because you could do it that whole. Anytime she's on screen, you can just play it faintly in the background, and then bring in the words whenever she's like really, really in deep. Which goes to my next song for Dan, "In Too Deep" by Genesis. Anytime anytime Danny Boy is feeling really sorry for himself for creating the problem for him and his family.
Awesome. That's a good one. I like that a lot.
Thanks.
Good job. I like that we had one. Actually, I like how I said let's do one song. We both picked 2.
Right. I was like, well, maybe just one more.
Sure.
What's your second
Yeah,
one?
I did the same way. My second one is I Want to Know What Love Is by Foreigner.
Okay.
And I would have that scene playing when they're in the park and when they're spending the day together. Kind of like a play. Yeah, kind of like a play on what's actually happening. You know, I Want to Know What Love Is, and you're hearing the lyrics to that song. I think the song it's upbeat enough to kind of set the tone for like they're having a fun day in the park, but it's also quasi melodramatic. For some reason in my mind, it just kind of worked well with that scene. Yes, I agree with you. That scene. Listen, let's talk about the dog, Quincy.
That poor dog, he was just witnessing the nonsense and he just didn't want to actually be there at all.
No. Okay, Quincy went at least 12 hours without going outside. I mean,
Rude.
Sarge, literally, I took him to pee before we started this podcast. And
He's like, sir, it's been 20 minutes. I need you to get up.
He said, it is time for piss again. And I said, all right.
I got you.
So, poor Quincy. And Quincy doesn't look like a puppy, so Quincy is an elderly dog who, you know, needs a little extra attention like our dogs. And he was home alone for at least 12 hours while he was off getting his pleasure. While his dad was off getting,
And it's the fact that Beth simply asked him to do one thing. Make sure you take out the dog.
Yes, and enjoyed the spaghetti that I made you. Let me talk about this, guys. I have 2 dogs, one of which is a senior dog with pancreatitis. He has to eat specific types of food. This Dan Gallagher comes home because he didn't eat his wife's leftover food that she assumed he would eat since he was going to be alone for the weekend. So he puts the plate of spaghetti and noodles with meatballs on the floor for the dog to eat in whole. What? Okay. Beth Gallagher looks like someone who uses garlic and onion, and those aren't good for dogs.
Oh, no. I hate that.
So,
but also, at the same time, the plate's on the floor. Do you think he's going to pick it up and put it in the I don't even know, did they have dishwashers back then? In the sink to get washed? Like,
well,
she's gonna come home. Yeah, I also just aged everything in my whole world. Did they have dishwashers back then? As if 87, like I was born a year later. I can't believe I said that out loud.
Brittany's like, back in the day when the dinosaurs were around, did they have dishwashers?
Literally. That was crazy. But yeah, that he just shovel it in your mouth, feel sick for a second, you'll be fine. You're an adult. You did the bad thing. Nobody told you to do that, especially not Quincy. He was just minding his own damn business by himself.
Fucking Quincy. You know what, Quincy? I feel bad for Quincy. I really want to just give him a hug.
I know. He's the VIP of this whole film. But also, it was like Quincy versus the bunny, and she chose the bunny.
She did.
Probably because that run in the park, as they're rolling on top of each other, like, you're in public, literally.
Disgusting. So we talked about all of our thoughts and feelings when it comes to what our rating is. Brittany, did you find some absurd reviews online?
I did. I found 2.
Okay.
One on like both ends.
Okay.
So we got Gregory from New Time. He gave it a 1 out of 10. This movie is pretty stupid, really. I only felt for the rabbit and Quincy.
And Quincy. Don't forget Quincy. We only care about the rabbit in pop culture, but
Quincy had to deal with her. He was at the house. He was at the apartment. I honestly thought he was going to break through that window because of those pigeons. I got nervous.
Me too.
That was the most suspenseful part for me. I said, oh, God, now he's going to have to explain what happened to the dog to Beth because what are you going to say? The dog kind of fell out of the window. Of where?
Yeah, what window? What window, Dan? What window was it?
Where were you? You were supposed to be at home or at work. You liar. Dick. Okay. And then the other one by Nick Davis from Nick Flicks gave it a 4 out of 5. This movie's sexual politics are a little acrid, but its construction is so persuasive that the lead performances, Wait, and the lead performance is so inspired that the film is hard to resist.
Okay.
Which I get, but like at the same time, like, okay.
You know what? I will say one thing. When I was younger, I'm not talking 10 years old. I'm talking like early 20s. For some reason, I thought the film, because I went a long time. It's not like this is a movie I watch every year by any means, but I went a long time without watching Fatal Attraction, and for some reason, I thought the sex scenes were a lot more explicit than what they are. And I'm not saying that they're not explicit per se. Like, I'm not saying go play this, for anyone, but they aren't as explicit as I remember them to be. I don't know.
I can kind of see that because whenever you're younger, you're probably like, oh my God, this is so scandalous. And then you get older and you're like, people kind of do weird shit like this. So, like,
yeah.
But some of the sex scenes were so aggressive. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? The elevator scene?
The sink scene, using the
sinks, just slapping water all over. Like, what are you doing?
She's like, let me turn the water on, and I'm going to rub it on my body, and you can do the same to me, and then I'm going to put it in your mouth.
Yeah, like...
Enjoy my water, Dan.
Like, are you guys okay?
My water will not be ignored, Dan.
At all. And, like, because, again, you were at dinner, and then all of a sudden you're at the apartment, and that's the vibe? Because that's not the vibe that I was getting whenever you got drinks after that meeting that y'all both had.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then all of a sudden, here you are, putting her in a sink, and then running around with your pants around your ankles, like...
My God. These two, I tell you.
Yeah.
All right, I have a couple absurd reviews as well.
Okay.
This one is from Mary, Mari, and this was on Letterboxd. She gave it a 0.5 star, and she said... I had to watch this for class, and yeah, this is not made for me. I need happy, whimsy, silly things, not this. I'm stressed.
Oh. Okay. That's more dramatic than the film itself.
Literally, Mary, 10 out of 10 for drama here.
Yeah. Like, you really need whimsy that bad? No. In that point, like, it's okay. You don't have to have, like, happy-go-lucky. Because, I mean, there were some parts that were happy.
Yeah.
Ellen was happy about the bunny.
Ellen was so happy about the bunny.
That doesn't mean that the bunny doesn't have an expiration date after the happiness, but, like,
sure.
She was happy.
And that's just life. So, this is what it is. Sorry you're so stressed, Mary.
Mary with an I. Oh,
Mary with an I. Come on, Mary. This one is also from Letterboxd, from someone named El Jufo. El Jufo gives it a 0.5 star rating.
Oh.
And says, painfully boring, despite its genre, neither erotic nor thrilling. None of its meant-to-be tense moments land. None of its meant-to-be sexy moments land. Its female villain isn't malicious. She isn't seductive, nor is she really a relatable human being. Every moment of it is colored with something for her and for what she represents, that any chance of a decent film is drowned out. It has not a single redeeming quality, not even a single glimmer of something that could have been great. Its only value is as a cultural artifact of its era, of a reaction. Okay, El Jufo. What?
Like, I don't think that movie was made just to get a reaction.
I don't think so either. I think it's a tale as old as time. A man cheating on his family and the repercussions that you have to face, which doesn't go the way it should, but we'll talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I'm going to leave on a high note because I gave the low ratings, but now I'm going to jump into the 10 out of 10. This 10 out of 10 review from Carolyn Ocean, she says, superb thriller. This movie set the bar. A story as old as time itself. Take the risk, play the dangerous game, and hope to get away with it. Michael Douglas and Glenn Close are incredible as the villain Dan and villainous Alex, embarking on a steamy affair in the absence of Dan's wife and daughter for one weekend. Each as guilty as the other, playing a very dangerous game, which ultimately leads to an ugly end. The only victim here are the naive wife of Dan, Beth, played by Ann Archer, and the ever-so-cute daughter, Ellen. It's a dramatic story about attraction, sexual desire, deceit, weakness, betrayal, and revenge. I have watched this so many times, and each time is a thrill. Has definitely stood the test of time, gripping and compelling, brilliantly acted, especially from Glenn Close. A classic thriller that does not disappoint.
Honestly, that's not a bad written review. And it, like, I can see the movie through that review.
Sure.
But it's still, there's something that didn't connect with me that believes it. If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I like that review. Like you said, that's definitely a review. She kind of lays what the story is and then kind of gives her idea of why she enjoys it so much. So definitely review. Way better than Mary with an I or whatever the hell that woman's name was. I've already blocked it out.
Or honestly, a lot of people who write reviews, because it's very like, hate it. And you're
stupid.
Like, okay, why?
Yeah, right. Cool. Okay, you gave it a half star because...
Yeah.
I saw a lot of reviews where people gave it a shitty rating just because they kill a bunny, and like I get it, but that's not a review.
That's
of
not the
film.
point of the movie, and it's literally
Right.
not the point of the movie. That was the last part. Though I think there was like 20 minutes after that, and I was just like, oh, what else could really happen?
You already killed the bunny. What's next?
Yeah, like, oof. But hey, Dan just kept doing a lot of stuff. Stopped going to her house. Stopped going to her apartment.
He did. Leave her like just.
Leave her alone. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, we got one last little thing to play here. Our little 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yes.
I did not choose Amy Brenneman this time.
You didn't.
I did not. So
she wasn't in this film, so
correct.
Understandable.
Yeah. So if you haven't listened to the Fear episode, I basically told Brittany that we were doing one person, but then I said we were doing Amy Brenneman when we were recording, so it got real awkward.
And I panicked for a hot second.
She did, yeah. Watching the video back editing, I was like, oh, Brittany was like, what the fuck? Wait a minute.
I was like, that's not what you told me.
Amy Brenneman is not a part of this movie, so I didn't bring her up this time. So we're not doing 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon with Amy Brenneman, but we are doing 6 degrees of an actor who is in this film, and that actor is Stuart Pankin. He plays Dan's best friend. He was also, and I discovered this in my research, he was Earl Sinclair in Dinosaurs, which blew my mind because I've seen this movie a million times. I used to love dinosaurs when I was younger. I was like, that's how I recognize his voice and even his mannerisms and everything. I'm like, oh, it all makes sense. So I thought that was a pretty cool connection there. I was like, whoa, my mind was blown.
My mind was blown too whenever that appeared. I said, oh, this makes sense to why I know his voice. Yes.
So we had to do 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, and I used Stuart Pankin because why the hell not? So, Brittany, what is your connection with Stuart Pankin to Kevin Bacon?
So, we got Stuart Pankin in Fatal Attraction, what we were talking about right now. He was in a movie with Jeff Daniels called Arachnophobia, which is a horrifying movie. I don't like spiders. I've seen it once, and I said never again. I dreamt too many dreams. And then Jeff Daniels is in a movie called A Few Good Men with Kevin Bacon.
Very good. Look at you. Killing it.
Yes. But I did try to connect him with the reason why I know Stuart Pankin, because he was in, do you know the Disney Channel original?
I do not. What was he in?
He was the uncle through marriage of Xenon Carr, the girl of the 21st century.
Oh my god, I had no idea.
Yes, and it was funny because whenever he popped up on the screen, I said, isn't that guy in Xenon? And he's in all 3 of the movies. So
wow.
It was like a little pleasant surprise. I tried to connect that, but I couldn't find it.
Hey, you tried.
Yes.
What about Footloose?
So Jeff Daniels is actually in Footloose with Kevin Bacon. I was going to use that. It appeared because sometimes I would like Google something and then it would bring me to something else, and then I would look at the cast and he wasn't actually in it, and I was like, "What do you keep doing that for?"
Why are you lying to me, internet?
Why are you lying to me? It did say that Jeff Daniels was in Footloose. I've never seen Footloose, so I didn't want to use that, and I also didn't want to steal it from Lauren. Because
so
I feel like there's always going to be a connection to Footloose somehow, some way.
Oh, for sure. We'll have to play 6 Degrees of Footloose next time.
Yes.
Just connected to Footloose. That's all. Doesn't matter how we get there.
It. Right? Doesn't matter. I love it.
It doesn't matter.
What did you get?
So my 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, using Stuart Pankin, who is in this film Fatal Attraction, appeared in a film called Arachnophobia with an actor, John Goodman, who was in a film called Death Sentence with Kevin Bacon. So
that's crazy.
Look at us, Brittany. We both used the same movie, Arachnophobia, but we used a different actor from that movie, and both of those actors from 2 separate films are related to Kevin Bacon. So that's fun.
Love it.
Look at us. Wow.
Hell yeah.
The magic of filmmaking and Kevin Bacon, honestly.
Honestly, he's just connected to everybody, and I love it.
He really is. All right, so I want to throw out a couple fun facts for you guys, just a couple little fun tidbits about the film. So Glenn Close actually still has the knife that she used in the movie hanging up in her kitchen at her actual home. She states that it's beautiful, made of wood and paper. It's a work of art, and it's nice for our guests to see it because it lets them know they can't stay forever.
That's funny.
She's so funny. I love that. So Glenn Close wanted to do this film, but there were so many actresses the studio was going after, and unfortunately the studio had no faith in Glenn Close. They didn't think that she looked the part, however we want to take that. They don't think that she looked the part. They don't think that she was able to shed her, as you mentioned earlier, kind of like her goody two-shoe type roles. You know, in this she had to be kind of sinister and, of course, get pretty dark. So the studio didn't really want anything to do with her, but when she read for it, she kind of blew everyone away. And she approached the character in a completely different way than I think some people would. She got full method actor in terms of she styled her hair completely differently. She came in, she had her hair in a big perm like she does in the film. And she even took the script to a couple of psychiatrists and asked them to read the film and ask what their interpretation of Alex is from a psychologist type angle. And the conversation, there wasn't a lot of talk about mental illness in the 80s. There wasn't really a light shed on it. So it was kind of more or less like, this girl's just either batshit crazy, she's just a crazy woman, she's a crazy jealous woman. But what they discovered, they kind of gave her a background to the character, which she ran with. And that background was based on her interactions with Dan and how she reacts to certain things that he says and does, and the conversation she has about her father when they're on their date in out in the park. Dan makes a kind of a cruel joke that he pretends that he has a heart attack. She tells him to stop it. My dad actually died of a heart attack, and he's completely like shocked that he's like, oh, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. And then she's like, oh, I'm just kidding. He's still alive. But what we find out later is that she was actually telling the truth, that he actually did die. So based on the writing, both psychiatrists who have no affiliation with one another both said that she was most likely a victim of sexual abuse in an incestuous way at a young age.
It's crazy, but it also like makes more sense, I guess. I did read that a lot of people in like comments on YouTube and stuff, I think that's where I was looking at it, that she had a borderline personality disorder. Mm-hmm. So it was like, I mean, sure, I don't know like the structure of that and the tells of it, but it's also like, I feel like you can't diagnose somebody with something like that if it's not even brought up to the surface at any point in time. Mm-hmm. So that kind of makes more sense of the background of Alex, the character. So she knows, so Glenn Close knows where, like, the motive is coming from. So that's cool that she did, like, that type of research to get into character like that.
I think that shows that she really cared about this character. You know, to give a background to a character that doesn't have a background written was pretty awesome. And, you know, I'm sure other actors that in the past, and obviously we know currently there are actors who get pretty deep into method acting and trying to figure all that stuff out. I just think it's really cool that she took the time to do that, and she owns this part. She really does. This brings us to the conversation of the original ending. We're going to refer to it as the alternate ending because it's not the ending that everyone knows. With the alternate ending,
Okay.
Alex Forrest was originally scripted to die by suicide at the film's end by slashing her own throat. Her plan was to make it look as if Dan had murdered her, for which he would be arrested. Although Beth is shown to possibly have a way to free him when finding a revealing tape that Alex had sent him and taking it to the police, test audiences did not respond well to this ending, thus resulted in a 3-week reshoot for the action-filled sequence in the bathroom at the end, resulting in Alex's death by a gunshot. Her being shot by Beth switches the two characters, with Alex becoming the victim and Beth taking violent action to protect her family. My take on the original ending, personally, I think that ending would work much better in 2025. To me, that ending is, I want to say, like an independent art house type film ending, to where it doesn't pander to probably what the audiences want to see. I think the ending that we have now works for the 80s popcorn thrill ride big budget film. Not that it had a big budget, but because it was such a popular film, I'm going to throw it in that category of like a blockbuster film. To me, the ending just made sense because it is exciting, it's intense, to where the original ending in the film, when Dan goes to her house after everything happens with the bunny rabbit and the kidnapping, Dan breaks into her house and they have a fight. He tries to choke her. She attacks him with a kitchen knife, which he finally gets free from her hands. And they both kind of stop. They're just like, this is stupid, this is done. And you know, they kind of give each other a look, just like, this is it. This isn't going to go any further. This will result in your death if you continue. Stay the fuck out of my life. The end. He takes the knife out of her hand and places the knife on the kitchen countertop. He leaves. He goes to the detective, lets the detective know everything that happened, everything that Alex did. The detective, not really having a lot of reason to go check this out, he basically says, we'll check it out in the morning and we will have a conversation with her. We'll let her know she needs to stop doing this. He's like, if you need me for anything, please come to me. That's where the ending comes, the original ending comes in. So in the original ending, from that moment on, we see him back at home at his house with his wife and daughter. They're outside doing typical family yard work. Little Ellen's running around having a good time. But a bunch of cops pull up. They come over. He's like, all right, we're going to have a conversation. And we learned that when they went to go talk to her in the morning, they found Alex's dead body in her apartment. And her throat had been slashed with a kitchen knife. And that kitchen knife, as we know from an audience perspective, will have Dan's fingerprints all over it because he took it from her hand. They arrest him and take him to the station for questioning. Of course, you know, his wife, Beth, is completely upset and doesn't understand what's going on. She does hear that Alex has been found dead and knows that her husband most likely is being accused of the murder. So she goes upstairs to find a phone number to call to get other people involved, to let them know to take care of him, obviously a lawyer. And she finds the tape that Alex had made for him, where she talks about how, you know, this is what our relationship has resulted in, me leaving you this message, and I want you to know that things could go bad. I will kill myself if we're not together. So hearing this tape, Beth is like, yes, I found a reason to get Dan free, because she, you know, basically admits, I'm going to kill myself if you decide to stay with your family, which he does. So then we cut to a scene with Madame Butterfly playing and Alex in her, I believe she's in the kitchen. Alex is sitting in the kitchen with that same exact knife, listening to Madame Butterfly and taking the knife to her neck and slowly slitting her neck and dying as the film fades to black. So that is the original ending of the film. And test audiences absolutely hated it, because test audiences in 1987, the reason being what Paramount said test audiences hated it because they wanted to make sure that Glenn Close's character, Alex Forrest, got what she deserved. And that was Beth taking the gun and shooting her dead because she was trying to ruin her family. How do you feel about that, Brittany?
Like, I get it, but then it's just like more trauma for Beth. So like, cool. Like, yeah, I took my man back, but looks like he probably will do it again, but whatever. With the other one, the alternative ending, I feel like logistically, from the angle, because I've watched a lot of like SVU and stuff like that, Law and Order, the angle, like, there's no proof, like there's no evidence that it was him. Just how she did it herself, like there wouldn't have been an uptick, because by the time she pulls it down halfway down her neck, she already passed out.
Yeah.
Which also, if you're slicing your own neck, how are you not? She didn't make a word. She didn't make a sound. That was crazy. That was more disturbing than anything. I was like, wait a minute. Stop.
She was like, I don't feel pain.
Yeah, and it's like, you do. Hence why you're doing this. Like, quit it.
Yeah.
Quit it.
Yeah, I think both endings work. Both endings end with Alex dying. Like, that's, that it is what it is.
But like, one is taking the power back. The other one is like a self-sacrifice for love. So like,
yeah.
I don't know.
So the decision to reshoot the ending definitely had mixed reactions from people involved with the film. Director Adrian Lyne initially completely disliked the idea, but eventually agreed to it when Paramount offered him $1.5 million more to do it.
Well, he said, okay, give me that money.
Yeah, all right, cool. When Ann Archer found out the news, she was so flabbergasted she bursted into tears because she loved how the original ending was and didn't want to change what could be. Glenn Close was completely opposed to the idea and even refused to take part in it. She said no for 2 whole weeks. I will not be a part of a new ending. She thought that the ending that they filmed with her slitting her own throat was the only way to end the film. That the whole film talked about Madame Butterfly, the ending of Madame Butterfly, the tragic story of being alone. She was never destructive, other than the bunny. She was never destructive to them physically. She was destructive to herself, though. She took all the blame herself. She was her own victim. She was the bad guy in the story to herself. And thus the ending made sense to Glenn Close, especially for how much time she put into it from a psychological aspect of really trying to break this character down. So she thought it was completely diminishing the character for what it was. According to co-producer Sherry Lansing, Glenn Close felt sympathy for Alex. She was a woman battling mental illness and fiercely resisted cliches about another female psycho. She thought that with the new ending, she was going to just be considered a crazy, villainous bitch. And that's not what she wanted to be. She wanted her story to be a sad story about a woman who wanted love, went about it in all the wrong ways, believed a man, and ultimately became her own demise. She kept saying no, and finally Michael Douglas and a couple of close friends of hers convinced her that she needs to do it. With that being said, Michael Douglas said, yeah, let's do it, because he had executive producer credit on other films prior to this, and said, if we change the ending, I guarantee you this film will make at least another $100 million at the box office. So he felt the new ending that they were going to be filming, the one that we get in the final film, was a thrill ride ending. The satisfying ending for audiences were going to make people talk, to bring people back in. So after much convincing from a bunch of people, Glenn Close finally agreed, but she had one condition. When she's talking to Beth in the bathroom, she has a knife in her hand, which we assume she's going to attack Beth with. But before she does that, she's very slowly picking at her own leg with that knife, causing blood to run down her leg. And Glenn Close said that she wanted to make sure that she was reminding the audience that she is self-destructive, but at a point to where she has no other measure to do, and she knew that this would be the end of her herself, but she wanted to make sure she was known that she was in control of the situation. So that's kind of how the endings kind of played out together, and I get it. I think both work in their own ways. One is definitely a lot darker, and which is why I think in the 80s maybe people didn't connect with it, but I do feel like in a weird way, structurally different, the ending with her killing herself would probably be the way to go if the story was told now. Again, not told the same exact way, definitely a little bit more self-aware of the subject matter and taking care of it the appropriate way. I kind of feel like that ending works a little bit better in a modern landscape.
I agree with that because of the Madame Butterfly, that whole song and the whole story that he's telling her, when they're having lunch together and wine and just having a good old time. About like the opera and the first time his dad took him, he was 5, and like that specific scene, and then they even listened to it together in silence and just like felt it. So it was the fact that that happened makes sense to why the alternate ending would have happened, because like that was her last like real connection with him, and I think that's why she was playing it. So she's like, at least I'll die knowing that this part of our relationship, whatever that was the real deal.
Agreed. I think this film, from a different scope, from a different point of view, this is kind of a heavy film. It's not necessarily portrayed in a heavy manner. It's definitely portrayed in a Hollywood type of way. But I really think if this was given independent film treatment, where you kind of have full structural independence over how you tell the story, I feel like this film could be a really, really dark film. And I'm not saying that's how it should be or it would be enjoyable that way, but you can really jump into the psychological horror of what this movie is about and the study of this woman, Alex Forrest. And in a weird way, I think I would kind of like that. I think I would kind of like to see that dark version. And when I say horror, I'm not talking, I'm not actually talking Michael Myers or Freddy Krueger, that type of horror. It's literally that psychological story of
like not the story of her reacting to a man approaching her, more so the story of how she even got to the point where she's at to interact with a man in that way.
Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. I just, with the film, I hate that there's no repercussions for Dan other than the bunny that he bought for his daughter gets killed and boiled.
Which he bought out of guilt because he already said no, and then he felt bad, so he bought the bunny for his daughter to like maybe alleviate what could possibly happen. But then the only reason why Beth ever found out about Alex was because Alex put that bunny in a pot.
Yep, Beth. Yeah,
because otherwise would he have said something? Probably not, because she kept calling. Like, that man dropped a full table to answer the phone, and his father-in-law was like, that's suspicious. Didn't say a word, but he just looked like,
nope.
What are you doing? What you doing? I needed to answer the phone like that.
Right.
Is it Martha?
Yeah,
Is it just Martha?
Ah, Martha, you were so relieved.
So relieved. So
So,
suspicious.
with this conversation of the original ending and the idea of a remake, like a reboot, reimagining, there was a miniseries that we talked about that was done within the last couple of years with Joshua Jackson and Lizzie Kaplan. I don't want to talk about that, but I want to literally just say, what would this movie, as a movie, look like in 2025? And if we had to recast Dan and Alex, who are we recasting in these roles? Brittany, who did you pick?
My brain just keeps going back to Unfaithful because they kind of redid it again, but without calling it Fatal Attraction,
Mm-hmm.
because it was fatal regardless in that film. But more so, well, yeah, no, same structure but different people. Because it was the female character seducing the other one, and then the husband like taking it into his own hands. Here, who did you pick? And then yeah.
So I chose to play Dan, Theo James.
Okay.
I feel, I'm looking at Fatal Attraction in a slightly darker, more independent type of way. I think Theo James can hold his own as a charming man and as someone who, you understand why there's this vulnerability for some woman to want to start talking to him just out of the blue randomly at a bar or whatever the situation might be. And I also feel like he could play that vulnerable, I've done wrong, kind of caught in the moment, I'm ruining my family. I feel like he could play that dramatic side really well. So I think that would work. And in Alex's role, I'm taking someone that we see a lot, we've seen a lot. I want her to step out of a lot of boundaries. She's done darker stuff, but I really want her to step out of her boundaries, kind of go full Glenn Close and really make this character her own. And I can kind of visually see her doing this, but Amanda Seyfried.
How did I know you were about to say that? Because I continue.
I just, like, I could just see her, thinking of Glenn Close, thinking how Glenn approached the character. I could see Amanda walking into this audition with big permed hair because she wants to kind of, you're shedding the idea of who Amanda Seyfried is. You hear Amanda Seyfried, what characters do you think of? You're not really thinking these darker roles where she did step out of her boundaries. So why don't we give her this big platform, this role that people are going to pay attention to, this reboot, this darker version of a story and a film that everyone knows. And I think Amanda Seyfried could just do it because I could, she's a beautiful woman. She's charming. I think she could captivate the screen. She's a good actress, and I think it would make it believable. And I would love to see her, like I said, she's done darker roles, but I could see her really stepping into this and just going batshit crazy. And I would love to see that. I think it would work out really well, and I feel like her and Theo James's chemistry would work really well as well also.
I like that because I was going to say Amanda whenever I popped up in my phone really fast, and she popped up and I said, you know what? She would actually be legit as you were describing it, and then said her name. So Amanda Seyfried as well. Because I could absolutely see her getting into those darker roles because she has such range going from Karen, she's Mamma Mia. There was another movie that she's in that I can't think of, but it's more like a rom-com. So she's used to the rom-com aspect of it. So I think that'll play a great part in showing the chemistry. I would pick Nicholas Hoult for Dan because I can see him. I've seen him in lighter roles, but I've also seen him in dark roles, where he seems like he's a nice guy, but he'll say some under the radar stuff, and you're just like, who are you? So I can see that play, especially them working together for a case that they're in the same room in general. That would be really cool to see.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I mean, I can see him as well. Yeah, I don't know why. I would like to see this movie redone. The miniseries definitely attempted it. I mentioned to you earlier, there's a lot of high highs in it, but there's a lot of low lows. I don't want to get into my thoughts on it per se. We can save that conversation for a different day. But
Yeah.
I think Fatal Attraction is a movie that is easily relatable to probably anyone in some capacity, even if you weren't someone who physically cheated or someone who actually got cheated on. In some capacity, there's even been that moment where you're like, are you discreet? I'm
Yeah, the
discreet.
temptation, right?
Yeah.
And even that conversation was crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's, I don't know. I really like this movie. I know it wasn't your cup of tea, but there's something about this movie. It's a horror movie in a completely different light, and I think the performances elevate it a lot. What did you think of the acting in the film overall?
If I take some of it was a little over dramatic, but I understand why it was a little over dramatic because the people who were interacting, like whenever it was Beth and Dan, I liked their energy and chemistry, but then it didn't make sense because now he's with Alex and you're like, I get where it was supposed to be seductive of them with each other, but at the same time I was like, she's like, I get it that we're both attracted to each other. His friend was the one that tried to holler at you, and then you literally looked at him like, I will murder you. And then he goes, never mind. And then here comes Dan. But it was like there was never enough for them to make me feel like, oh, this is an affair that was gonna happen. Maybe because there wasn't build up, because like we just met her and then all of a sudden the next day after their meeting, they're running around in the rain, giggy gigs and doing kikis with coffee and martinis. And he's like, why aren't you out on a Saturday night? Cause you were together with her? Like, what are you asking her? What are you even saying?
Yeah, I agree. It needs fleshed out, it needs trimmed, it needs a makeover, you know.
Yeah, a little bit more structure, maybe an eye of a female to give that like counteractive, because sure, you can have a woman who like, oh, you're married? I don't really care. But like to then structurally do what she does, you're just like, that doesn't, I'm sorry, but women aren't like that. As much as men think it, they're not. It would be more of a build up. And I get it, like we're trying to make a movie. It was long enough as it is. You didn't need to add extra days in the timeline, but it maybe would have made it, at least for me, a little bit more believable.
Yeah. That's fair. You know, we talked a lot about this being a pop culture phenomenon. Everyone knows what Fatal Attraction is. Did you know that the term bunny boiler is actually in the dictionary now?
Because of this movie.
It's an actual term. And it literally reads, a person, usually a woman, who is emotionally unstable and prone to obsessive and dangerous behavior in relationships, often for a potential of vengeful actions.
It should just say as a person, because men can do crazy shit too.
Yep.
And they do. But somehow it's never depicted in a way like, don't ever find one like that. But with women, it's like, I'm sorry, if you see a blonde with big hair, she's probably gonna try to seduce you and snatch your life. Like, what?
You know, this really makes me really want to rewatch Unfaithful because, you know, as you mentioned, you know, the roles are flipped, but I want to kind of see it from, it's been years since I've watched Unfaithful, but I do love that movie a lot. I kind of want to see it from, you know, obviously every year we're a little bit older and a little bit wiser. I'd like to see it from my point of view now. You know, how is the writing? Are we is Diane Lane, is she the bad person because she's a woman? That's kind of what I want to see, because I feel like I don't really
agree.
remember how it all plays out that way.
Like, I remember how it plays out, and there was, from what the audience see, there is a reason to why she does what she does. And I think it's because her and her husband, aka Richard Gere, aren't connecting sexually anymore, and she just needs like a revamp type deal. And she's like at lunch with her friends, and like they're going through their relationship stuff. So she sees this casually attractive man, and then it like bam. But at least you know the start of it. And that's why I think it's such a weird depiction to have, because I mean, we see the family life of Dan and Beth. They're getting ready for his event. She doesn't think she's pretty enough. He's like, "You're the prettiest one in the room." But that's the first lie that he says, because then we get to literally maybe an hour and a half into the night. They're about to leave because, they have to go get their child, probably from the babysitter, that blonde girl that was there. And then here comes Alex just watching him as he walks away. And then all of a sudden, she's absolutely obsessed.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even know that they were going to be in the meeting together the next day. Absolutely obsessed. Can't keep my mind off of him. For what?
For what? For real though. And what? So Anne Archer, we talked earlier about how I think she's great. When Michael Douglas' character Dan admits to the cheating, first she's obviously very upset, but in a weird way I feel like she was accepting it. It's like, okay, you messed up, it is what it is, we can get through this. And of course this is all just acting physically, there's not that actual dialogue per se.
Yeah.
But that's how I interpret it. But then when he says that she's pregnant, that's when it all goes, that's when it's no longer the affair. Now it's a woman who you impregnated that will now forever be a part of our life.
Yes. Which is fucked up.
So fucked up. So then poor Anne Archer is the one who discovers the boiled bunny. And I want to tell you a fun fact about this, Brittany and listeners. That bunny in the pot was real. There was an actual bunny.
No.
So they went to a butcher and got a dead rabbit and put it in boiling water. When Anne Archer comes into the house, she said that it smelled so bad in there, she had to try to stop herself from gagging while she's walking through the entire house to the kitchen to pull the lid off of an actual boiling bunny. Isn't that insane?
It is insane, because back in the day, they really treated animals like actual trash. Because why does a butcher have an albino bunny?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you using that? I've never, though I don't go to butchers, so I don't know. But that just seems sketch. That just seems sketchy. I don't like it. I couldn't imagine, like, that house probably smelled so disgusting. Even thinking about it makes my stomach hurt.
Poor Anne Archer having to do such a thing. But then she has such a great moment, which I alluded to earlier, when after she finds out about the affair and all this crazy shit's going on with kidnapping the daughter and the boiled bunny, Alex is on the phone, and basically Dan's like, Beth wants to talk to you. And Anne Archer, she looks so distraught. She walks over to that phone with confidence. She gets on the other end and she says, "If you ever come near my family again, I'll kill you. Do you understand?" And the way she says it is so firm and so like, I will really kill you. And she then sets the phone down because she doesn't give a fuck what Alex has to say, because you mess with my family. You're basically trying to ruin everything that we built together. So if you come near my family again, I'll kill you. Do you understand? And it's a rhetorical question, because Brittany, she doesn't care if she understands or not.
No,
you come
she
near my
just hung
family
up.
again, yeah, I'll fucking kill you. So,
But also, she said her full name. She said, I'm Beth Gallagher. I said, oh. But also the fact that Alex was like, you don't have the balls. The fuck he didn't. Yes, he sure
Yep.
did.
Yep.
He said, listen, you keep coming to my home. You followed me. I moved across the line. Because what? Did they move to New Jersey?
It's upstate New York.
Okay. So the fact that he moved to a house that he didn't want, that he skipped the family trip to see the in-laws, to see the house, and then he gets back to you saying, I'm pregnant, which also pregnancy does not happen like that. How is it that we hooked up on a Saturday and then all of a sudden we're on a Tuesday because she said Monday I went to my gynecologist, like literally 3 days? 3 days? Don't lie to me.
Yeah. So that's the age-old question in this film too. Do we actually think that she was pregnant?
No, I don't think half of the stuff that she said. Like, whenever he asked her, why aren't you out, like, you're a young, attractive woman, why aren't you out, like, on a Saturday night? She goes, I had a date. No, you didn't. So, you were watching him with your umbrella, and he was acting a fool, doing things. He could have just went back into the building and then figured out his umbrella and then left.
Right.
But no, he's like, I'm going to put my coat over my head, half of my briefcase.
I had to laugh at the scene with the umbrella though, because I actually had a very similar incident that happened to me. Zach and I went to the store one time and it just started pouring down rain, like really, really, really hard, like a torrential downpour. So while we were in the store, we were like, oh, we're just going to buy some umbrellas. No problem. We got the cheap shit. It was like $6 each. So we go to leave and Zach confidently just pops an umbrella open and darts across the parking lot. Perfect, right? So I'm doing the same and I'm like fidgeting with it and it pops open just like his did, where it like reverses. It just completely like goes out the opposite way. And I just ended up walking in the rain. It's fine. Alex Forrest wasn't there for me.
Yeah, because Alex had a bigger umbrella.
Yeah.
People always buy the cheap umbrellas, but those will do you dirty. The wind will blow wrong and you are flying away like Dorothy.
I think I sneezed and it blew out wrong. It was like...
Yeah. I'm more of a huge umbrella, like a golf umbrella. They're kind of heavy, but it gets the job done. Because also the little umbrellas, you're still getting wet. Just your head's safe.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I walked through the parking lot with the broken umbrella just sticking just straight up in the air.
Yeah, you're like, let me just catch this rain.
Yeah, it's fucking monsoon. It's fine. So I felt Dan in that moment. I was like, I get it, bud. But still, that doesn't mean,
No, that doesn't mean go to like pre-dinner with this lady who you just met.
Yeah, to go have sink sex.
Yeah, and then to go dancing and then do it again.
I was exhausted just looking at all that happening.
Yeah, I was like, wait, so not only did you guys wake up early for this meeting, though she was late, they go to drinks, go back to her place. She's like, you want to go dancing? He goes, yeah. And then they do that, and then they go back, and then he's like, oh, actually, I gotta go.
And she said, you want a blowjob?
Yeah, like, oh yeah, I forgot that was right after. And time out, whenever she says, have you ever done it in an elevator before? And then he goes, not recently, no. So immediately I thought, yeah, I was like, hold up. Who are you in elevators with? You don't work with your wife. Or what do you?
Look at you.
Don't make me investigate. Before? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Dan Gallagher. Brittany's coming for you. She's onto your case.
Yeah, because he also says, he says, we had an opportunity and we took it. Bro, you had an opportunity and you ran with it. Mm-hmm. She was already unstable before this happened. And you shouldn't have taken advantage of that. And you did.
Yep. He thought with his dick.
Yeah, yes. Like, there's so many things that happen that I think Beth was too calm about the cheating because he's probably done it before, and she's probably like, we can get past this again. But I think the pregnancy threw her because she's like, and why would you do that?
Yeah.
No. I mean, he doesn't even know how old his own daughter is. He said 6, she said 5. Like, how old is she actually?
Well, it looks like we need to rewrite this, Brittany.
Yeah. Because, like, there are so many holes in the plot.
So, with all this conversation, has your rating changed?
A part of me wants it to, but the other half of me, I just can't. I don't know. But I respect everybody's part in it, because, I mean, by the end, Dan Gallagher looked like he aged about 10 years, and he did it to himself. But, like, he was stressed every corner that he turned, or whenever he's in the attic listening to the tape that Alex sent him, which was nice, and then it progressively got worse, and then all of a sudden she's homophobic, and you're like, bro, what?
Right,
Where?
right.
Whoa. Because I'm pretty sure you were just banging that man every which way you could. So, like, you need to chill. But then it's like seeing his progression of a character was interesting. Seeing Beth, like, be this calm person, and then by the end she's shooting the mistress. And then we see Alex essentially not starting off crazy, but I was like, no, there's something off about her. The second she, like, doubled back and was like, oh, you're at the bar with me, and then just watched him walk away. You were too intensely staring. Yeah, like, and even so, that's another thing. Dan Gallagher really actually pissed me off, because they're sitting and eating and, like, having the conversation of being discreet and all of that stuff. And then she finally mentions, so where's your wife? And he gets all, like, disheveled, like, my wife? You brought her up? The first night you met her, you mentioned my wife. She's right there. I gotta go. So why all of a sudden you're bashful about your wife and kid?
Yeah.
And then you still went to have sex with her.
Multiple times.
Over a course of 2 days. Before your wife was not barely gone for a weekend, and you did all of that and didn't take care of your own fucking dog.
Fatal Attraction 2, Quincy's Revenge.
Yeah, and hopefully Quincy and Beth pair up and get Dan out of there, because nah, he doesn't deserve that.
Quincy goes, life is rough, bitch, and then shoots him.
Yeah. Or, like, claws him to death, and it's, like, so dramatic that he just can't simply get him off.
Yeah, he makes him choke on a spaghetti meatball.
Just brings it back. It's like, why'd you feed me that?
Yeah, how's that feel?
That was crazy, though. Like, he really put that food down, ran to work, and then laid in bed, rolled around. Like,
oh my god, I know. Don't cheat, kids.
Yeah, because, like, I feel like it's way more effort to cover it up. What was even the point? Because you didn't even get anything good out of it.
Nothing. You didn't get.
And, like, structurally, like, what was the point? That's what I mean. Like, there was, for him, there was no point. But he just wanted to gallivant, have a good day. But then he said, like, I didn't leave you the next day because I didn't want you to hurt yourself. If you didn't want her to hurt yourself, then you should have called somebody. Not go back. You had lunch. You listened to the opera. You were just having wine in the middle of the day.
Let it all out.
And you didn't expect her to say, hey, you're mine now? Okay. And he said, I'm married. What can I say? Sleeps together. I'll slap that man.
For sure. And then obviously the most infamous line in the movie is, I'm not going to be ignored, Dan. Like that, she told him. She said, you're not getting away from this scot-free, bub.
At all. And then she said, I will call and call and call and call. Also really weird, whenever she shows up at his office, and then he closes the door on his assistant, if I were his assistant, I would have called up his wife and been like, hey, something's happening. Not sure who this person is, but it seemed a little weird. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Because then she would have known whenever she ended up at the house, like, hi, I'm Alex. And was so weird. Like, didn't
that
we
was a
meet
moment.
Before? Actually, I'd be like, get out of my house, actually. At that point, I'd have been like, I do know you, and I accidentally slept with her. I shouldn't have. It wasn't an accident. I chose it, but now she's being crazy. So let's just squash this right now.
Yeah.
End of story. End of movie.
Yeah.
Nobody has to die, but ain't nobody getting nothing anymore.
Yeah, there would have been no dead bunny, but Quincy still would have been a victim.
True. But also, the bunny would have never been in the family.
That's true.
Because he didn't buy the bunny yet.
That's true.
Because it was after she showed up at the apartment. He goes, oh, I guess we gotta buy that house now.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, gotta buy that house. Gotta get out of here.
No, we're not broke anymore.
Nope.
Let's go. Get on out.
So, well, Brittany, any final thoughts? I mean, you said your rating didn't really change. You'd like it to, but it didn't, and that's fine. Anything else you want to say? Kind of summarize your feelings? Or do you feel like you got it all out?
I wrote in big letters, caller ID would have outed him from the gate.
Oh, yeah.
So he's lucky that all of this happened in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. You hear that, Dan Gallagher?
Because otherwise, the 57 calls that you missed every single day, she would have star 69 that shit. Said,
she would have.
Who is this?
Alex Forrest, who are you?
Yeah. But yeah, I guess that is my final thought. I get what they were trying to do, but...
Sure. Well, it sounds like you liked Fear more.
In a way, yeah.
Okay.
In a way. In a weird, unfortunate way.
Have you ever seen Swim Fan?
I love Swim Fan.
Well, Swim Fan...
love that movie so much.
Its marketing was literally Fatal Attraction for teenagers.
That makes sense because that girl was crazy. And that whole, we should do Swim Fan because I'm here for that. I've watched that movie more than once because that's with
Jesse
Crawford
and
Bradford, not Crawford. Yeah.
What is her name? What does she do?
I don't know. I just remember she was blonde. I don't know. I feel like she had a very small stint of movies around that time. Because I vaguely remember seeing her in something else, or it could have just been a TV show. But I've watched that movie more than once, more than I should. And I'm like, does this actually happen? Private schools seem weird.
For sure. Fatal Attraction to me, I said everything I feel. I told Brittany this is definitely in my top. If someone said write down your 25 favorite movies of all time, in no order, Fatal Attraction would probably be on there. I know it's not a perfect movie. I know it is flawed, but there's something about it that I really do like, and I think I also judge it from the potential of what it could have been also. So I'm gonna stick with my 9 out of 10. I love Glenn Close in this movie. I love Ann Archer. The girl who played Ellen, her name is Ellen in real life. She did 3 other small things around the same exact time, and then she was like, "Peace out, Hollywood. I ain't coming back." And I think she's just a normal person. She was so
precious.
So good.
And whenever she had to cry, that little watching her parents fight, and she's just petting her little unicorn. How did I get here? Not only is my bunny dead, but now I gotta watch you dumbasses fight.
So I did have this fact written down. I did kind of skip over it, but I guess we can end the episode with this. Yes, Ellen's acting was amazing, and the scene when Dan and Beth are arguing about the affair, and Ellen comes into the room, and she's witnessing it all, and she starts crying, holding her little unicorn. Michael Douglas was actually on the other side of the camera telling her that he's going to hurt the little unicorn. He's going to take it from her and he's going to hurt it, and that she's never going to have it again. And that's what they had to do to get her to react the way she was. And Michael Douglas is quoted saying, I don't know verbatim, but he's quoted saying that as soon as the director yelled cut, he immediately ran over to her and hugged her and said, "I would never do anything to your unicorn. I'm so sorry." And he said sometimes you just have to really push an actor to get the result that you want, and unfortunately that's what they had to do for her.
I'm glad that he hugged her, because what in the actual fuck?
Yeah. So
traumatized that little sweet baby angel.
I hope
who just wanted her unicorn.
I hope somewhere Ellen has that little unicorn still in real life.
Same, because she was so precious. She didn't deserve that. Her parents need to do better for her.
For sure, her parents need to do better. Yeah, definitely dad.
Definitely, for sure, dad.
Well, I guess that's all we really have to say about Fatal Attraction from 1987. You heard both of our reactions. I'd love to hear everyone else's as well. So if you want to comment on the Instagram post, slide into my DMs, whatever you might be, I'd love to hear your take on it and see where you react to it, on what level, scale of 1 to 10. As always, thanks for listening. Brittany, thanks for being part of this episode. I appreciate you watching a movie that you weren't very excited to watch. I'm sorry you didn't get to love it, but I'm glad that you got to experience it and see where all these references and pop culture come from.
And I could finally put multiple faces to the name whenever people refer to that. So I appreciate you suggesting it for me to watch.
Yeah, so with that being said, everyone, I hope you have a great night. Brittany, thanks again. I appreciate it. And until next time, I'll catch all you little bunny boilers later.
Bye.
Have a great night.